Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Brent Harding, and you are on the Wealth Warrior Station. It is my pleasure to be here as always every Saturday morning. And what are we doing? We're talking about wealth. That's our mission is to embrace wealth. Actually, you know what? It's to study wealth. Oftentimes people will say, well, I want to get there. Well, that's great. Do you know what you're going to do even if you get there? It's like a dog chasing after a car. What's he going to do when he catches it? So, what we're doing now is we're actually studying the pillars, the keys, the pointers, whatever we want to call it. We're calling it the keys or the pillars, but that's what we want to do. We want to study wealth. And by this time next year, by April of 2016, all we want to hear is that we've created wealth. We want to see the results. Our mission, 100,000 families around the world. We're creating a movement of people that are saying, you know what, it is right to be wealthy. It's not unrighteous. It is right to want certain material items. You see, money is merely an exchange. I have taken this to get that. It is when we are greedy, when we are willing to do things that are unrighteous, things that are illegal, things that hurt, things that maim. When we do that, when we are aggressive rather than being assertive, that's when there is a problem. So, with that being said, wealth is something that we have the right to want, not only for ourselves, but for the next generations. In fact, if you are a first generation wealth baby, then I want you to go up to our elusive exclusive, the Wealth Warriors Facebook page. And I want you to go ahead, hashtag I am a first generation wealth baby, and be proud of it. In fact, normally I would tell us to go through the introduction, but before we do that, I want you to go ahead and be proud. Say it loud. I am proud. I am a first generation wealth baby. How's that? All righty. With that being said, we are going to get today's party started. I am so enthusiastic. Bringing back to the stage our SME. That's right, our SME, who is going to talk to us about the subject matter credit. But here's the deal. Today, we're talking, there are some people out there that truly think that there's a conspiracy to keep your credit score low so that you can't qualify for anything. And so as a result of that, that became the topic for today. Is credit scoring a conspiracy? And how do we raise that score? The person, the SME, the faculty member for Wealth Warriors that's going to discuss this with me today is none other than Chris Bridges. Miss Bridges, are you there?
Hey, I am back. How are you today?
Gloriously wonderful and absolutely marvelous and ready to talk about conspiracy.
Oh, okay, wait. Before you do that, because every time I talk to you, you always have such a wonderful greeting. So I'm going to I got one. Let's try that all over again. Ask me how am I doing.
Okay. I'm ready. Go for it.
You're supposed to ask me how am I doing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Ms. Bridges, how are you doing today?
I am wonderfully created and living on top every day of my life. How about that one?
Whoa.
I said, every time I get with Brent, she always has this wonderful greeting because we should really affirm what we believe in and who, say how you really feel, not just, oh, I'm good. How you doing? And I tend to do that. People say, how you doing today? Oh, I'm doing good today. But you know what? I am wonderfully made and I am living on top every day of my life. So that's going to be my new greeting.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Very nice.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I'm so glad. I am glad that you are wonderfully made and continue on. Well, you know what? We want to help some other folks to get wonderfully made.
Living on top is what we want. Absolutely.
True that. So I tell you, I am sure that when you heard the subject matter, you must have laughed when you said conspiracy, Brent.
Yeah, I think that's great. But I was sitting here when you said that, I was thinking, oftentimes, especially if we're on the denial side of the desk, then we think, there must be some reason why we're not getting what we want. But if you think about it, money has to continue to flow. And so they really, when you think about the lenders, and not necessarily the borrowers, but the lenders, they want to be able to lend because that's how they make money off their money. They make money from it. So, it may not be so much that it's a conspiracy that they don't want us to be able to borrow, but we've got to get ourselves in a position where we can borrow without having a tremendous amount of risk. But you best believe, Brent, and you know this because, you're a financial consultant as well. You know that money is being circulated. It's just a matter of is it being circulated through our hands or not, but money is being circulated and folks are getting approved to be able to borrow. We just may not be, or not as many of us may be. So we got to look at it from that perspective as well.
Agreed wholeheartedly. That, and folks, warriors, that's the deal. Right now, the marketplace has changed. You remember when I shared with you that we have a business curve or an S curve, and the beginning of that S curve is the form. Then we go from the form to the storm. Storm to perform, and perform to norm. So right now we have passed the storm. We are actually in business cycles, in the real estate cycle. We are actually in the perform stage. And in fact, here in Massachusetts, I tell you truly, I was staggered when last month in April, when we were going over the third pillar or the third key of wealth, real estate. And I just, one of the real estate brokers said to me, oh, I just listed a house that was in an inner city area, a 3-family house for $750,000. And
wow, in Massachusetts, you're in Massachusetts?
In Dorchester, Massachusetts, $750,000. I thought I was going to fall off my chair. I stopped. I was like, wait a minute, hold it. What did you just say?
But you know what? But was it like an area that's being revitalized, or is it because when you say inner city, is that an area that is kind of up and coming? Because a lot of times when you come into those communities, then you're able to increase the value of the properties.
Well, I'll tell you, yes, you should say, we could say that. We could say it's urban, but it's urban. It's definitely up and coming. We have people moving back into the city. And we have in a particular area, City Hall is moving a lot of its offices. And so, I remember one time, Richard Taylor, who's both a friend, a developer here in Massachusetts, he said, when you see those sidewalks being done, the deal is done. And sidewalks are going up everywhere. And I always remember that that's what he said. So yes, in fact, that's what's happening. As that relates now, bringing it back to our subject matter of credit, people want to be able to purchase. So why don't we start there, Chris? When it comes to credit scoring, we're looking to qualify for a mortgage. What's the typical credit score that we should want to have in order to qualify with most lenders for a mortgage?
Yeah, but I love the way you put that. Like, we should have, or do we just need to have as a minimum? Because that depends on how you look at it, right? Because we should have more than what the lenders require. But most lenders, I would say, to give us an opportunity to have options so we can go around and maybe, shop around for the best service, the best price, it just like any other major purchase, they're looking at about a 640. Now, Brent, with that said, there's probably a handful of lenders that will lend for less than that, 620, 600, even down to 580. However, as you lower where the norm, because, if the rest of the lenders are the average of the norm is at a 640. So if a lender chooses to take a lesser credit score, then they're obviously choosing to increase their risk, which means there's going to be some increase that the buyer is going to have to come to the table, either more money down, a higher interest rate, or more compensating factors to really make that loan palatable for the lender. So I would say if you want to go out and get, and we're talking about FHA, by the way, we're not talking about conventional lending. We're talking about FHA. So FHA, most lenders are about a 640. That would be the minimum guideline to kind of have a decent conversation with the loan officer.
Okay, could you give, for our first generation wealth babies, would you give a quick definition of what FHA stands for?
Oh, yes. So FHA is HUD, basically. And, just like There's a lot of loan programs, and so I'm not, I'm not a lender. I think you've had lenders on the broadcast. I'm not a lender, so let me tell you guys from what I understand. So FHA is a type of loan program that is backed by HUD, and it used to be. Right now, FHA is kind of been redeveloped. It's gone away. It came back in the market. When I owned a mortgage company with my husband, we had just started picking back up FHA because conventional lending, they needed you to put down more money. And FHA was at that time 3%. Today it's like 3.5%. And in a lot of cases, that's still less money than you have to put down on a conventional loan. But FHA basically is backed by HUD. It's a government loan, typically less amount down that you have to put in, and most FHA programs will allow you to use home buying assistance programs like down payment assistance or other types of grants that may come from communities or your local state or local counties that really help like first-time home buyers get into a home. So FHA tends to be the most flexible loan program that's out there, and again allows you to get in with less money, and in a lot of cases also a lower credit score. But that's what FHA is.
Very good. Now, for our warriors, here's something Chris brought out: FHA, first-time home buyers generally, less money down. We're now going to raise the ante. We're going to hit the conventional lender, because at the end of the day, we're not just talking about buying one piece of property. Right. We're talking about buying multiple pieces of property, because that is one of the pillars of wealth. Right. And so we need to think globally, macro. So we're now beyond that first-time home buyers. We bought our first-time home buyer, whether it's a one family, a two family, a three family, whether it's a twoplex, a threeplex, a fourplex. Do know this: Chris and I both agree that when we're buying that first piece of property, it's not going to be a single family piece of property. We're buying multiple. So with that being said, Chris, let's raise the ante. We're now talking, everything we're going to talk about now is going to be conventional for credit score purposes. So hit us with what would be a conventional credit score that means a person is likely to get the mortgage, the car note, the mortgage, the car, the credit cards. What would the score be?
Yeah, so conventional is a little bit higher. So conventional maybe on the low end might be about a 680, and on the high end, so it could be anywhere the lenders are looking for between a 680 and maybe a 720. And I tell you, Brent, there are some pros and cons between FHA and conventional. So even if you've got a good, decent credit score, like if you can qualify for a conventional loan, even though you may have to put a little bit more money down, and again, some guidelines are a little bit more flexible, you still may want to look at going conventional if you can qualify from a score perspective, because you may think, oh, I've got to put more money down, but in the long run, especially when it comes to mortgage insurance and things like that, in the long run, it may cost you less for that house. So just like anything else, when you have a credit score that'll open the door to flexible conversation, then you can decide what's the best program for me, and not just be pigeonholed to, oh, I can only buy this house using FHA lending, because that may not be in the long run the best deal for you. And you're right, if you're thinking about buying a home, you may want to, when you're ready to upgrade, instead of being forced to sell that home, you may want to keep that house and then buy another one. So you may want to look at, the best way, the best opportunities to be able to purchase these properties. And all that, quite frankly, comes down to your credit score. That's where it's, of course, in the money you have in the bank to buy the house. But a big part of the lending program comes from, where is your score? What's your credit look like, and how will that determine which program is best for you?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. All right, we are ready, warriors. It is now time to hit the keys. So first thing is hashtag FHA, hashtag Federal Housing Administration. We want to put that into the feed in case anybody missed that. That is a great agency for first-time home buyers. It's a way to get you started, low down payment. Now, at low down payment, it gets the ball rolling. So you said, well, wait a minute, Brent, we were talking about, is credit scoring a conspiracy? Okay, we're going to get to that part. But right now, we want to put the nuggets into the feed. And the very first nugget that I know I heard was FHA. Another nugget or a piece of information that we want to we want to talk about is the credit score. Conventional, so you can put hashtag conventional credit is 680 to 720. That's typically going to get you the mortgage. It's going to get you the car. It's going to get you the credit cards that you are looking for, that type of score. So I want to put those into the feed right now. Make sure everybody heard that. And while you're at it, let's introduce ourselves. Let's make sure that we say who we are. My name is Brent Harding. Where am I from? I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, not where you were born. We also want to say what exactly. I couldn't resist that one.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No. You living in Boston. Where are you from? And then what is it that you do? I'm a professional network marketer. I'm also the founder of the Wealth Warriors. Put in what it is you do, because you never know. Some of us are actually looking for other services. So it does make a difference. So with that being said, we're going to keep it rolling. Chris, what I clearly understand about our credit is that right now, what is amazing in my reading is that 79% of the information on our credit reports is actually inaccurate. And it may be inaccurate not because of the creditor. It may be inaccurate because information got copied, got recorded incorrectly, something of that nature. But nonetheless, we have credit inaccuracies that are dragging our score down. What do we need to do and I shared with the audience last week about the Fair Credit Reporting Act and about the laws that govern. How can we raise our score by eliminating some of that inaccurate information?
Well, first of all, it doesn't matter if it's accurate or not accurate if we don't know what's on there. So you got to start there, Brent. So yes,
Absolutely.
You're right. Most of the information across the consumer's credit reports has some level of inaccuracy, whether it's, a date is not right, a payment hasn't been posted, it's reported as a charge off. And it's gone over to another collection agency, but it's still reporting the balance. I mean, we've seen it all. So there's a lot of times there are mistakes. But you know what, Brent, if we're not looking at our own credit report, those mistakes won't make a difference. We don't know if it's right or not if we're not looking. I often, when I speak, I give this example of two people in the back of the room kind of whispering and talking to one another. And then you walk in the room and you're like, they're looking at you. You know how it is, Brent. You remember back in the day when you go to a party and you got the two, girls over there whispering, they looking at you and you're like, I know they're talking about me. I know they're talking about me. And then you want to know, what are they saying? Well, it's no different. If we're not looking at our credit report, listen, the credit bureaus and the creditors, whether the one that furnished the information or the one that requested the information about you, they're having a whole conversation about you and you have no idea what they're saying. So get in the conversation, find out what they're saying. You got to get that credit report. So we got to start there. So absolutely, there's a lot of potential errors. Some errors are errors. They're just mistakes. And then, of course, you've got that whole conversation. We may even have time to touch on that today, called identity theft. So there's some basic mistakes and errors. And then there's some, straight up fraud that happens. And if we don't look at it, we have no idea what's going on. So, yeah, we got to get that credit report.
True that. For the listening audience, one of the quickest ways to get a credit report, Credit Karma, they're up, they're there. Chris, when it comes to a credit report, I like to get something from a Credit Karma or something that has all three scores on it rather than going to the various creditors. And my posture on that is that I don't want to alert the media. If I owe some creditors, I don't want to flag myself. I want to be able to resolve problems, but I don't want to flag myself. Is that, in your opinion, would that be the right approach?
Well, it depends on, again. So I'll say this. Credit Karma, you can look at your TransUnion and you can look at your Equifax, but it is considered a third party. So sometimes the information there is not even up to date or is accurate because it's actually coming from the horse, which is the core, which is the actual bureaus, and then it's being fed out. So if you're a consumer and you're just kind of checking to making sure that your information is correct, it's not really critical that you're on top of it. You're not trying to buy a house or something that you need to really be on top of that, a restoration plan, then Credit Karma, it would be fine. But keep in mind that Credit Karma is highly sponsored. So I would not be surprised if your information is not in some shape, manner, or form, sold through the opt-in screening that it would be if you were to go someplace else and not had to actually physically opt out of it. So
Okay.
I'm not sure, if I've never researched it to see if our information is actually kept really private. I know that Credit Karma is highly sponsored. That's why everything on there are ads. So there's something they're getting back out of that.
Gotcha on that one. So in other words, more so for the ladies than the men, what you're saying is, look, you got to get on the scale, weigh yourself, and just and bite the bullet. Okay, that's the best way. This morning I'm like, I'm getting ready to start my diet, and I didn't want to get on the scale, but I went, you got to start it, you got to know where you're at.
That's funny, because a lot of times we go to the doctor. I just went to the doctor recently just for basic, I think I had a finger infection, and the first thing they do is get your vitals. And so I'm giving up my purse. I'm taking off my jacket. I'm taking off my shoes. I said, listen, my jewelry, how many, pounds and ounces you're going to give me for that? I'm like negotiating with her to take everything off.
Or you sit up there and you say to yourself, wait a second, I came in for a hangnail and you want to weigh me? What's that got to do with a hangnail?
That's exactly what you kind of feel like. You got to go to that scale, but it's okay. It's one of those things you have to do.
Absolutely. And where that relates to that credit report, ladies and gentlemen, is you got to pull them. We about the business. We're looking at business. I want you to turn and put the business hat on, because that's where we're going. In order for us to create wealth, wealth is business. We are in the business of creating money for ourselves, creating money, not for ourselves, but for ourselves, yes, but the next generations. So step one, pull that credit report. Take a look at the information. Is my name correct? Are there more listings of my name that do not belong to me? Was it supposed to be a U and it's an O? That's an error. That needs to come off. Check the date of birth, check your addresses, check your the vital signs, if you will. What are your vital signs? Those are. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Chris.
No, I was just saying your social security number. I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that, someone can access your credit profile and not even have 100% of your information accurate. I could find you, even if I misspelled your name. Your social security number could be a digit or two off. Even the birth date could be wrong. And then certainly the address could be missing the apartment number or flat out spelled wrong. And I'll still find your profile. So a lot of times, these errors, they're human errors. Somebody keystroked something wrong, but they found your profile. You guys started talking. They mentioned about your car leasing company, and you figured, yeah, that's me, when you don't even realize that negative information or that inaccurate information is now integrated into your database and into your profile. So yeah, you got to check it, because simple things can happen that could have errors that could potentially, cost you a couple of points down the road.
Absolutely. Good point. Thank you for that. Also, you're checking for duplicates. These are the primary things that we want to be checking for on the credit report. So we have combed through the credit report. We have checked them. First of all, we've gotten all three. And what are the three? TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Somebody put that in the feed so nobody misses it. 3 major credit bureaus, and Chris gave us some phenomenal information the last time that she was here. I learned something about the history of how this whole thing got started. Private companies. I was so mind-boggled by the private companies that suddenly are having an effect on our lives.
Well, FICO still is. I mean, if you think about it, and Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are private companies. So yeah, these are not government agencies that are out here for us.
If they were, you walked away from the table almost thinking that they are, and wake up one day to find out that that's not the case. But they did a good selling job and integrated themselves into the fabric of America.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So, Chris, now they've gotten the credit report. We've combed through. We've looked at it. We've deduped it. We have corrected the name. We've corrected the address. If there's a phone number, because sometimes they will have them, we've corrected that. We've corrected the jobs. We've done all the things. And my understanding is that in some instances, we can literally raise our credit score by 50 points just through the deduping and the accuracy process. Am I right about that?
Well, it depends on, yeah, I mean, it depends on what was inaccurate. You know, a small name variation or an address, you're not going to get 50 points for that. You may or may not see a major difference.
Yeah.
It depends. But if you've got several name variations and several addresses, so it really depends on everybody's profile. But listen, I looked at a report yesterday. It had a bankruptcy. This particular client has never filed for bankruptcy. So there were about 4 accounts that were attached to this bankruptcy, this discharged Chapter 7. She never filed. I'm like, you would know that. You would have had to go to the court, have your creditors hearing, sign the papers. You know, you would know that. So it's something like that with that type of error. Yeah, absolutely. That error can be reversed. That could have a significant impact on her overall credit profile.
Okay. And good point. That being said, how long does derogatory information stay on the credit report these days?
That's a good question, right? Because everybody wants to know, you know.
Oh yeah. First question. How long, Brent? How long?
So you talked about the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and the Fair Credit Reporting Act is the federal law that governs the reporting, a number of things, but governs mainly the reporting of information. And it only really addresses negative information. So your positive information has no time clock. There's no expiration date. But on negative information, it does. And it depends on what it is. Bankruptcies must be removed after 10 years. So 10 years is the time frame for bankruptcy. For everything else, it's 7. And that what that says is that after 7 years from the date of the first delinquency, that negative information must be removed. Now, Brent, you didn't hear me say that it can't come off sooner. And that's usually that aha moment I get when I'm speaking, because I set some folks free to realize I filed bankruptcy. It doesn't mean I have to tell everybody for the next 10 years. So negative information can be removed sooner than that time frame. But that federal law just basically says after 7 years or after 10 years, it must be removed, which simply a phone call or a letter, it'll come off without having to go through any type of investigating or disputing.
Okay, so what I heard you say is that 7 years from the initial delinquency, yes?
Yes, or in the cases of public records, it's from the time that was settled, you know, paid or taken care of, resolved, or discharged for bankruptcy.
All righty. With that being said, my understanding is collection agencies, when how do I describe this? I'm trying to find a good way of saying this. Okay, a collection agency has now bought that debt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At that point, does that restart the clock when they start contacting or reaching out to us?
Yeah.
And we have a conversation with them? Did we just restart the clock?
No, it's called re-aging. And the only way that, well, let me just say this, legally, the only way that a collection agency is supposed to re-age an account is if you pay or agree to pay. So if you call and agree to a settlement or agree to a payment plan with no intentions on honoring that agreement, you just messed yourself up. So that could give them the right to re-age the account. Other than that, just checking in, disputing even, does not legally give the creditor collection agency the right to re-age. So you have to pay or agree to pay in order for it to be updated and re-aged.
Okay,
By the way,
you didn't hear a nugget in there. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I'm going to add something else to it too. When collection agencies report the day that they received the account, whether they were hired or whether they bought it. So the date opened is the date that the collection agency established that account, not the date that you first went delinquent with your original creditor. So that's important too. People will say, well, I didn't have that account in this particular year. The likelihood is that you had that account, but you had it much sooner or earlier. But that collection agency can only report the day that they got it.
Chris, that brings an interesting thought process to mind. I'm sitting here, if I'm in the audience, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, heck, I don't have any incentive to pay you. I might as well just, I'm like, why would I want to pay you and start a process all over again?
Yeah, well,
yeah. Let me hear it.
Because it depends on how old the debt is, right? I mean, if it's been reported and remember the date the collection agency reported it, and it's 2 years or sooner, then it's probably worth it to pay, especially if you can afford to pay it, because it's having a big effect on your score. But if it's 6.5 years old, hasn't had any activity, the status date's a lot older, then you can decide whether or not you want to pay. Now, we got to say this though, Brent, because this is kind of my caveat. These are my disclaimers whenever I'm coaching somebody. I'll tell them you may get items removed, or negative items may even come off your credit report according to the statutes and limitations. It does not mean you don't owe the debt though. So, one strategy is to just wait and let some of this old negative stuff kind of just come off the credit report. And that absolutely will impact the score, because, it could change how many negative items, what are the negative items in your credit report. But it does not mean, Brent, that, just because this Verizon collection, because everybody got a Verizon collection, just because this Verizon collection came off your credit report does not mean you don't still owe Verizon. So that's my disclaimer. So nobody say on here that they saw Chris Bridges and she said you can get this negative stuff off and you don't have to pay it anymore.
And I'm going to echo that. And the Wealth Warriors, our broadcast is saying the same thing. We are not saying that you should not pay your debt. We pay our debts. However, we're cognizant that, well, you know what, Chris, this is a question for you. All right, I hear what you're saying, Brent. I hear what you're saying, Chris. My life has turned around. Things have improved. I'm now wealthy as a result of all that I've heard and that I've learned. And that old credit report is sitting there. I got the drogs off. Why? Because of time. But I really do want to pay my debt.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Go, please.
I know where you're going. Go ahead. I know where you're going.
No, that's pretty much it. Please go ahead and share with the audience. How do we do something? How do we do that without messing ourselves up?
Because this is what you might want to be careful about. So that's where I thought you were going. You're going to specifically ask me this. So you pay an account that's 10 years old and you pay it. So it's no longer, oops, somebody's calling. It's no longer reporting on the credit report because it's aged off, but you just paid it. Well, guess what you might have happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
It might come back. Thank you. But it's going to come back paid. But you know what? I can't guarantee because now you've paid it. It could be the status could have changed. It could have been transferred to a different collection agency, and now you paid it. So that's where it gets tricky. And you can comb through all the laws that govern around credit and reporting and consumer debt and all that. And I'll tell you, Brent, every day these credit bureaus and these creditors are breaking the law. Okay, so you can find an infraction, a breach of the law every day. So a lot of times things get re-aged when they are not supposed to be. What is a consumer to do? Well, all you really can do is sue them. It's just like when you're doing simple disputes. You send a letter off and the credit bureaus don't respond. And everybody says, but if they don't respond, they have to take it off. And I'm like, well, that's what the law says. Are you going to go hire an attorney and sue them because of that? So, a lot of times we have to know the law because we got to know, what governs the actions and reactions that we can take. But it's one of those slippery slopes. Like, for real, are we going to really sue them because they didn't respond to us? Are we going to really find an attorney who'll be willing to even take that case? So, we're talking about these old accounts. We want to tell everybody this is your debt. Again, this is a disclaimer because I don't want anybody to say, she didn't tell me I had to pay it because it came off my credit report. It's our debt. What you do with your debt is totally on you. Just know, and this is where knowledge is really important. Just know what could and couldn't happen when those accounts, if you choose to pay them, if they get paid. Period. That's all we say. Because I can't, no crystal ball here. Brent, I can't say, oh, that thing will never show back up. If you pay it, it could trigger an occurrence that might wind up having it be repaid. Re-reported.
Okay, I got a question for you. Sure. In that case, I'm thinking the Consumer Protection Law. I'm thinking 93A, because at that point I feel like you've damaged me. I paid you. The 7 years rolled off. I am an honorable person, an integrity person. I now am in the state of wealth, and I want to pay you. And then you flip the lid on me, and all my history goes back on. It does say it's paid, but that ugly history comes back on. Would I be entitled to a 93A?
Well, again, Brent, I say that the laws kind of say what should and happen. It's just a matter of how do we want to address that. So I think that, when we're looking at deciding what to pay, this is an older debt. Can it be re-reported? Maybe that's also a time of negotiation. Make sure that that information can't come back. I mean, if it's the exact same status, no account number changes, nothing like that, then, that negative information is not supposed to get back out there. But we know sometimes things happen. Even when a lot of times, even when you just call, if you call and just ask questions about a particular account, that's not supposed to re-age and have it show back up. And I've heard.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Chris, say that again, because I know that people, you need to hear this. This is important. Please say that one more time.
I just said some things that I've heard of. If people call and just say, "Hey, I see this on my credit report. What is this?" Just calling, inquiring about an account does not give the collection agency or creditor the right to re-age it and all of a sudden, it start reporting. Now, they may start calling because collection practices may have stopped just because it's been dormant on your credit report. But re-aging, again, only for those two things. If you pay it or agree to pay it, it does give them the right to update, because what they're doing is they're updating the dates. And it kind of all goes back to how collections charge off public records, so how they're actually reported. They only report when it goes on our credit report and then when it's resolved. So either it's paid in full or settled or something like that. Those are the only two really reporting occurrences. They don't report every time they get a payment. So if we have a collection and we're sending them $100 a month, it's not going to be reflected on our credit report. They're not required to report any activity, payment activity, only when it goes on our credit report and when it gets resolved. So that's why those two occurrences could potentially, change the statuses on our credit reports.
Okay, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I'm a smart person. I realize the end of the year, about November, December, companies want to bring in as much cash. Their bottom line, they're looking at their bottom line. I'm thinking I could negotiate towards the end of the year. And I don't want to just negotiate. I want that stuff removed. I want a letter from you, creditor, that says, I don't want that. You know what? I don't want you to lie. So we'll just totally remove everything from the credit reports. And I'm going to give you your money. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I'm only hesitant because several things ran through my mind. My immediate response is absolutely, absolutely everything is negotiable. Brent, I negotiated a judgment and they were garnishing my client's wages. So they were going to get all their money at some point in time. They were entitled to it. They were already garnishing her wages. And we know when you garnish wages, you can get up to 25% of someone's income. So they were already going to get their money, but we were able to negotiate 50% out, right off the break. So everything is negotiable. So absolutely, you want to ask the question, and you have a 50-50 shot. I'm not a gambler, but 50-50 is not bad odds.
You're right about that.
You have no shot at it if you never ask. Now, with that said, let me kind of put my little business hat on, because I'm a consumer advocate all day long. Rah, rah, let's get our stuff together. But I got to say this, Brent. If every collection agency agreed to delete our negative history, it will by far, without a doubt, no questions asked, compromise the integrity of the whole credit system. So everybody is not going to delete our stuff. I don't care how many times you ask, who you ask, escalating it up. Everyone's not going to delete it. And some people actually do have contracts with the credit bureaus that they won't ever delete. So there's some that are just not coming off. There's a whole lot that could come off if you simply ask. So I do agree, if you call in and you're negotiating. Now, keep in mind, if you're offering 50 cents on the dollar for that debt, and then you want to turn around and demand that they delete it from your credit report, that might be a harder argument than giving them all their money. So this is where you want to decide, can I negotiate if I pay it in full, or do I need to settle? So
okay.
Makes sense.
I have you on that one. I very definitely have you on that one. At the end of the day, Chris, could we have a credit score? If we've done all the things that we've talked about, could we actually get a credit score to go from a 580 to 700. Is that a realistic jump
Oh,
that
yeah.
could occur?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, Brent, I really get excited when I see and talk to somebody and they're already all depressed and down, and they tell me their scores are in the 300s or the 400s or the 500s. I actually get excited because the reality is there are a lot of opportunities to gain some points when you're that low, because that's what happened. They lost points, so we lose points based on this negative information that's been reported about us. And so when your score is really low, you got a larger pool of potential points to get back. So you can move that score typically a lot faster. It gets a little slower. It's kind of like it just edging up a little bit when you're already in the 700s and you're trying to get to the 800s. Most of that could be some small tweaks, and then time. Time becomes your best friend. You're not going to jump from a 700 to an 850 in 30 days. It's just that kind of thing is not going to happen. But I've absolutely seen 100-point jumps, 150-point swings in 30, 60 days when the scores are a lot lower. So it's good news when your score is low. Now, I'm not saying go drop your score low so you can get,
Thank you. Thank you. That's not what we're saying. Everybody, let's get clear.
Yeah, we're not saying do that so you can get in on the good news, but just really be encouraged to know no matter where you are, from a credit perspective, where your score is, your score can be improved. You just got to know what to do and do the work. That's the biggest thing, is to do the work. So yes, Brent, you can go from the 500s to the 700s, and just depends. Now, everybody's profile is different. That's why I love getting knowledge. Even my books, I've written 3 or 4 books about credit, and even in the books, they're very general in nature. So we talk about general principles. These are the things that impact a credit score. But these same general principles may or may not impact your credit score. So it's important to know, your profile, and then sort of be able to execute, implement things that will work specifically for you. Because our credit profile is like our fingerprints. There's no 2 people that have the exact same credit profile. So if you think about it, you can't apply the exact same principles and get the exact same results. So it's exciting, it's good news. But yeah, you can absolutely move that credit score. The biggest thing is take action. Brent, usually on a daily basis, I'll get a call from someone and I immediately go into my database and I'm like, wow, it's good to hear from you. It's been since 2012, 2010, 2011. What have you been up to and how's your credit? The answer is always the same. It's the same. It's no better. And I'm like, you know what? There were years have gone by. We could have worked on that.
Absolutely. And folks, that Chris brings out a very, very good point. That is why we are taking action right now. And that action is we have put together some packages, some programs, some activity here at Wealth Warriors. We are committed to your wealth. We're committed to helping you to get your, I hate to say this, get your act together, because that's not what I really want to say, but it's to get you poised, to get you in position for wealth, to get you to the place where you can OPM, use other people's money to advance your agenda. That's what we're talking about. So we're putting these things on the table for you. And guess what? We're not saying you got to do this by yourself. You've got experts. You've got SMEs here, subject matter experts. Chris has written books on credit. Those will get you in the general lane. But guess what? Everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs a mentor at some time so that they can get to the place. You see, wealth is not something that's necessarily taught in the classroom. Regrettably, a lot of times we learn it on the job, so to speak. So now we've got to catch up with things. So here's the deal. We are putting together we're putting together the wealth assessment just for you. What's it going to feature? You're going to have a group, you're going to have people surrounding you. And what they're going to do is they're going to look at where you're at, and we're going to put together a blueprint. That blueprint is going to benefit you. That's why we want to make sure that we have a wealth assessment. That product is going to come out very shortly. Right now, I'm giving you the opportunity to have a conversation with me. You have access to Brent Harding. I'm going to give you my number, personal number, 617 438-7949. If you would like a if you would like a consultation, just a conversation, and this is going to be at no charge because you are listening, because you are part of the Wealth Warrior family, you are going to get a no charge 20-minute conversation with me. What are you going to get from that? You're going to get an SME who's going to hear what you're saying. I'm going to make some initial suggestions. And then if you say to me, Brent, I actually want a blueprint, guess what? I'm going to make that blueprint happen. I'm going to reach out to people like Chris and say, because we need to rectify a credit issue, or because we're looking at property, or we're looking at something that is putting your profile in order. That's what's going to happen. So again, I'm already willing and able, 20 minutes. And believe you me, it's a lot that can be done in 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
Put together that conversation. And again, reach out to subject matter experts such as Chris. So what I'm going to say to you is send me a text that says consultation. If you need directly some credit, you have some credit concerns, then send me a text that says credit. I will put you in contact with our expert. Again, phone number 617-438-7949. Brent Harding, founder of the Wealth Warriors. Chris, let me ask you something. What specials or activities do you have going on right now that you'd like the Wealth Warriors to know about?
Wow, thank you for that opportunity to say that. I was just sitting here thinking, wow, I'd love to share with them about an upcoming workshop. Now, this is a local workshop for me. I live in Maryland area. So the DMV, you're in DC, Maryland, Virginia, or you want to just drive here from wherever you are. Brent, come on down here from Boston. We're actually doing a bankruptcy protection and credit restoration workshop. I'm teaming with a bankruptcy attorney that I do a lot of work with, Kimberly Jackson. And we figured, you know what, it's time, dang on it, to have a conversation about bankruptcy. We're tired of people looking at bankruptcy from the wrong kind of, glasses. A lot of businesses and the wealthy use bankruptcy as a strategy. Some people even put bankruptcy in their business plan right out the gate when they first established their business. And yet in our community, and I'm saying it, in our community, we shy away from bankruptcy. We're shameful. We have all of these negative connotations until we go through it. And then we usually say, why didn't I do that sooner? So Kimberly and I decided we're going to pull people together in a room, and it's already filling up. And we're going to have a serious conversation about bankruptcy, the impact it has on your credit. And then most importantly, of course, we can't leave you there. How do you restore after that type of financial storm? So it's going to be Saturday, May the 23rd. I think that's next Saturday. Saturday, May 23rd in Largo from 1 to 4 p.m. It is absolutely free. Now, free.
Oh, wait a minute. What a four-letter word? Oh my goodness.
I know. You know what? And because we're so passionate about pulling people together. And I mean, we're going to change some lives in that room. It is going to be incredible because if you think about it, everybody has either filed bankruptcy, thought about filing bankruptcy, or just finished. Everybody. I mean, I'll be hard pressed to find somebody that doesn't know somebody that's fallen into that category. We're looking for those people that live in the DMV. Unfortunately, it's not going to be streamed live or anything like that. I don't even think we're going to record it. So we need people to be in the room. This is our first one. If it goes over really well and we get a lot of demand, then we'll record them and maybe do a live streaming or something like that. But be in the place. Go register at creditwithchris.com. You go to my website, creditwithchris.com. The information about
somebody please put that in the feed.
Go.
Chris, say it again one more time so somebody can put that in the feed. Please go right ahead.
Go to the website, creditwithchris.com. The information about the workshop is right there on the homepage. Again, you have to register. We're not letting anyone in if they're not registered, but the event is absolutely free. Don't come there hungry because I'm not having a whole bunch of food either. We're focusing on the information, but come on out with us.
That is the food. That is
food. That's the best kind of food. Yeah, Kim and I, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to change a lot of lives, and we just want people to start talking about it. You know what I mean? Just because nothing's going to happen until we face it. We talk about, remember in the day, Brent, when we didn't have GPS? You remember that when we used an actual?
Absolutely. Yes, I do.
Our kids don't even understand the days when there was no cell phones. Like, what is a cell phone? But back in the day, you know, you could use a map and you could get everywhere you wanted to go, but you had to know where you were starting from. Where you start here. Where are you to figure out where you're going? Same thing when it comes to wealth building, managing our money, restoring our credit. You can get to your end goal, your end result, but you got to know where you are. If you don't know where you are, you will not know where you're going or how to get there. So thank you for allowing me to share about that. Again, it's the Bankruptcy Protection and Credit Restoration Workshop, May the 23rd on a Saturday from 1 to 4. So come on out in Largo. Registration is open now. It is a free event, but you must register to get access into the room.
Fantastic. I do appreciate that very, very much. I will share with you folks, these are the pieces of information that you're going to get from the Wealth Warriors broadcast. This is the kind of information that's going to have a phenomenal impact. We are collaborating for your success. Now, one of the best part is that it is at no charge.
Absolutely.
Is that
no value, just no charge.
No, we said no charge for this part. There are going to be things for which you're going to need professional assistance, and I want you to be cognizant of that. What we're doing is bringing to you SMEs. We're bringing to you a faculty that has the same integrity, the same thought process. We are all going to get there together, and that, I hope, it really resonates with you. So one more time, you heard about Chris's event. Chris, tell us one more time where they can go to register for that.
Yeah, just go to the website, creditwithchris.com, and Chris is spelled CHRIS. That's you'll find me all over on that. Creditwithchris.com. It's right there on the homepage. You'll see the flyer about the event. Just click there and go ahead and get registered.
Fantastic. That's what we want to leave you with from Chris. What we want to leave you with from the Wealth Warriors is this. We are now moving into the next stage. We've been at this a good period of time. We're now moving into the next stage. And the next stage means we want to hear from you. We want to offer you value. And we want to hear and know that you're on the right track. We want to get your portfolio started. So what we're doing to entice, to move you in that direction, is we're offering 20-minute consultations, in which I am going to give you some nuggets. I'm going to help create right off the bat a profile or a blueprint for you. And if you say, hey, I want to start executing that blueprint, we're going to bring the right SMEs together to move you in the direction that is about wealth. Your success is our success. And I'm going to tell you something. Next year, this time, we are expecting 100,000 families to be positively impacted. Wouldn't that be something? Have a movement like that? Could you imagine having people come together at a wealth commitment summit of people? Isn't that a clear, that know exactly what they want? They're listening. There's details, there's breakout rooms. And at the end of the day, we are reporting successes, successes, successes. Would that not be awesome, Chris?
That would be super awesome. And I will be in the place. So let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been our pleasure to be with you today, to share another piece of the pillar. This is the first of the 12 pillars, the 12 keys, the 12 principles of wealth. I'll be back again next week, same time, same channel, and we will again be talking about credit. We'll be talking about business credit. We'll be talking about being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. What kind of credit do you have? We have personal credit, which should not be confused with business credit. We're not looking for them to do the commingle, because when they're commingling, you run into some problems, issues, and concerns. So we want to be able to get clarity with that. Let's keep the business the business. Let's keep the personal the personal.
Right.
Have a spectacular day. And I like something as I've adopted from Trevor Otts, and that is go out and be amazing.
I like that.
Absolutely. With that being said, we will see you again next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody.